Year 6 and welcome to Wednesday's literacy lesson. So as it is Wednesday, we are on writing. Remember, Monday, Wednesday and Friday are our writing days. So we are going to be using our writing book. So this one is the one that you need. And we are working on page 10 and doing section 3. Now I've noticed that a couple of people did complete section 3 on Monday. So I would like you to have a look at it again today now you've watched the video, because I've got a few little activities that I would like you to do. So to start us off today, I want to have a little look at vocabulary and the type of vocabulary that you might be using today to make your writing the top level that it can be, and making sure that we are using a vocabulary that will make it that way. So I've got a few words that I would like you to look up. So you're going to look up the word on dictionary.com, and then you are going to write the definition in your purple book and then a sentence including that word. So I'll show you what I mean. So I've got the words here. So you've got catastrophic, widespread, spewing, oozing, scorching and cavernous. And you're going to look them up like we do on dictionary.com. So you just type dictionary.com in, and then so if I choose the word catastrophic, and I put it in there, and it will tell me what it means. So it means the nature of a catastrophe, a disastrous event. So then in your purple book, you would write the definition of catastrophic. So disastrous event. So it's the nature of a disastrous event, and then a sentence including that word. So if I do on here, so the explosion. So the explosion caused a catastrophic. I'm going to put cause catastrophic consequences. So that means that they are a disaster. They are really, really bad. So I would like you to do that with each of these words. Okay, so write the definition and write a sentence with those in. So pause the video now and have a little go at that. Okay, so you should have had a little go at writing a definition for each of those words. I am looking forward to seeing all of your sentences. So today then, we are going to be thinking about technical vocabulary. Okay, so in this kind of writing, your non-fiction writing, you need to be using technical vocabulary. So what we're going to do is I'm going to do an example of exactly what you've got to do, but just on a different topic. So yours is volcanoes, and I'm going to have a look at rivers. So you've got at first, so in your book here, you've got something that looks like this. So you've got a diagram of a volcano and it's all labelled. So your first task then is to circle the technical term for each of those things. So you'll see here that I've got a diagram of a river, and then I've got to choose which one I think is the technical term. So you might not be able to see them brilliantly, so I will read them out to you. So I've got to circle, or I'm going to highlight so I can still see them, the one that is the technical term. So at the very, very first one here says it's the beginning or the source of the river. Now I think source is the more technical term for that. So I'm going to highlight source. So it's S-O-U-R-C-E. So it's not that kind of sauce that you put on your burger or whatever. It's the source, it's the start of the river. So there's nothing wrong with the word beginning, but the technical term is source. So then we've got tributaries or small rivers. Okay, so tributaries here is my technical term. Okay, so then I've got bends or meanders. So I'm going to choose meanders as my technical term. I've got the end or the mouth. So I'm going to choose the mouth of the river as my technical term. And then I've got either a delta or a muddy area. So I'm going to choose delta. So your first task here in your book is to go through the diagram and choose which one you think is the technical term. So which one of these is your technical term? So that's your first task. So once you've done that, you're asked to write about it. Now, if I was writing about something like this, even though I've done rivers before, I would need to be 100% certain about what each of these things mean. And some of them, especially on the volcanoes one, I wouldn't be really clear on what each of those technical terms means. So it's really important, because if we were in school doing this, we'd have done lots and lots of research about volcanoes and that kind of thing. So it's really important that you find out what each of these technical terms means before moving on to writing about them. So a little bit like at the beginning, although this involves a little bit more research, the next thing I want you to do, but for yours, so I'll show you how I would do it on mine, is in your purple book, I want you to write a definition for each of those technical terms. So if I just go back to your book, I'll do mine first and then I'll go back to your book and explain what I mean. So for each of my technical terms about the rivers, so the first one is source, I'm going to find out exactly what that means, but I need to find out what it means in terms of a river. Okay, so I'm going to go onto the internet. Open a new tab, and I'm going to write source, so river source definition. And I might, if I wanted to, put Key Stage 2 next to it, because that just makes it so, you know, I always put that after what I'm searching for. So I know exactly what I'm looking for in terms of what I need it for, because I want it for Key Stage 2. So it says it's the start of the river, and it's the furthest point away from the river's mouth. Okay, so I'm going to go back to mine. I'm going to put the start, oh, I'm still writing in highlighter. So the start of the river furthest away from the mouth. So I know exactly what that is. So when I come to write about it, I know what I'm talking about. Okay, so and then I'd go through each and every one of them, which I've already done, so you don't have to watch me doing it. I'd go through each one and find out what each of them means. So I've got a definition for each one of my technical terms, so that when I come to write about it, I can expand on it, I can explain, and I know what each one of them is. Okay, so what I would like you to do for yours is I'd like you to go onto the internet and I want you to look up each of these technical terms when you've decided which one is the technical term, and in your purple book I want to see your definition for each one of the technical terms, so you know exactly what it means before you get started. So you might want to pause the video now and go onto the internet and to look up each one of your technical terms about volcanoes. Okay, so I've done it for mine about rivers. So it's your turn now to go onto the internet and find out what each one of those technical terms means and write it in your purple book. Okay? Right, so you should be really clued up now on volcanoes and what each part of the volcano does, or what each part of this, what each technical term means. So you should have that written down in your purple book now, ready for your writing. So the next step using the technical terms. So you've got to use the technical vocabulary to write a section of the report about the different parts of a volcano. So I'm going to show you how to do that with the river. Okay, so I don't want to show you how to do it with the volcano because I want you to do that. You can use how I structure it, how I put it together to help you with yours, because it says here, think about the structure, think about what order you would write about it in. Now you know what each part is because you've looked it up. That will help you. So if I go back to my diagram, as a writer, I think the best part to start with is to start at the source. Because I know from looking it up that the source is the beginning and the mouth is where the river joins a bigger body of water. So I know that the source is the best bit for me to start with. Now, it's really important as well to think about vocabulary and how I'm going to put it together and how I'm going to structure it. So I would be using some really good time conjunctions. So to start with, to begin with, at the beginning. Okay, so I'm going to start with that. I'm going to start with the source because I think that's the best place to start because that's where my river starts. So I'm going to go back to my definition as well. Okay, and I'm going to start with the beginning. So actually I'm going to start with at the beginning of a river's journey. Of a river's journey. And I need an apostrophe for rivers because it's the journey that belongs to the river. So at the beginning of a river's journey is its, oh, and I've got it. We talked about apostrophes last week. So do I need one there? If I put an apostrophe there, it'd be it is. No, I don't need one because it's its source. It's the source that belongs to it. Okay, make sure I'm spelling it correctly as well. So at the beginning of the river's journey is its source. Okay, so I've started with something that indicates time. So the beginning. So at the beginning of a river's journey is its source. And there's my technical word that I have spelled correctly. Okay, so I'm going to, along the way, so again, I'm thinking about how I'm starting my sentences. It will be joined So I'm doing this like a bit of a journey because that's what my river's doing. It's making its journey to the sea or the ocean or another lake or a bigger river. So it will be joined by tributaries. Okay, so there's tributaries. Another one of my technical terms. Now, what I'm going to do now, so all the way through your writing, I want you to be making these decisions as I'm going to explain what a tributary is. I'm going to use a relative pronoun to extend my sentence. So by tributaries, which are, now I know what they are because I looked them all up. So I'm going to go back to my definitions, which are rivers or streams, right, which are smaller rivers or streams that join the main river. So I want to see in your writing today, extending your sentences using relative pronouns like which or that. Okay, so we'll come on to that vocabulary in a minute that I will give you to help you. So I've got along the way, so I've thought about how I'm going to start my sentence. It will be joined by tributaries, which are smaller rivers or streams that join the main river. Okay, I'm going to go back to my diagram now and have a look what my next bit is. So now I've got to talk about these meanders. So a meander, I've looked up, is a bend in the river channel. So now I'm going to start with the word while, I think. So while the river makes its way to a larger body of water. So I've got a subordinating conjunction at the beginning. So I'm going to have a comma. So while the river makes its way to a larger body of water, it will meander. So I'm going to put something in brackets now. So I can either put extra explanation about my technical terms by extending using relative pronouns, or I can use brackets. So it will meander. I'm going to put in brackets. Brackets. This means bend. So it will meander at different points. Okay, so I'm explaining all the way along all this technical vocabulary that I've learnt, but also I've thought about the order that I've written it in, because I'm thinking about that river's journey right down to the sea or the ocean or wherever it ends up. I'm going to go back to my diagram now. Okay, so I've got the end, right at the end, and I've got the delta. So I'm going to go for the delta first, because really I want to put the mouth right at the very end, because that's where it joins onto the sea or a lake or the ocean. Okay, so I'm going to just check what delta means. So I've got delta down here. So it's a wetland. So it's wet, muddy sand that all gets left just before it joins into the larger body. So I'm going to use before, I'm going to use right at the end of its journey. Actually, I'm going to put just before the river. So because it's a journey, I'm going to use destination now. Reaches its final destination. I don't want to repeat journey too much. It will deposit any mud or sand, and this forms a delta. Okay, and then I would talk about the very end part. So finally or eventually the river will reach its destination, where it will join either a lake, a river, or the sea. Yeah, so I have gone through, used the technical vocabulary, explained the technical vocabulary using brackets or using relative pronouns, and told the journey of the river. So it's your turn now to have a look at your volcano. And I would personally do this in your purple book, because I wouldn't be able to fit everything in this little section if I am explaining and giving examples and using relative pronouns and using brackets to explain the technical vocabulary. So I would suggest you do this in your purple book, because I want to see lots of detail. Now, to help you with this, I have put some words on the board. So your first thing in your purple book that I'll see is a list of each of your technical terms and their definitions. And then I will see your writing. So what I've done is I've put some words to help you start your sentence, start your sentences off. So you've got lots of prepositions, because you're talking about a volcano, so it might be things like underneath the ground or below or next to, all those kinds of things. You might have words like I had, so eventually or to begin with or finally, all those kind of words to structure your writing. I've also put you some relative pronouns, so which and that and while. You could also use while to start your sentences off. You've also got right at the beginning all the vocabulary that we talked about and looked up. So you might talk about lava oozing, or the widespread damage that it can cause, or the catastrophic explosion at the end. Okay. Also, you need to think about writing this in facts. So if we go back to mine, everything that I've written is factual. Remember that objective tone that you learnt about on Monday. So everything that you write about should be facts. Okay, so I haven't said the beautiful meanders or anything like that, because that will be giving an opinion. You need to keep this objective tone. Okay, you might use some of the generalizations, so usually, many, all those kind of things that you learnt on Monday as well. So I'm really looking forward to seeing your writing. Like I say, remember, I should see lots of things today. The first thing I should see is your definitions of that vocabulary, then the definitions of all the technical vocabulary about your volcanoes, then your description of a volcano erupting, you probably in your purple book, because you need the space, because I want to see extending sentences, putting brackets in, putting high level vocabulary in that we've learnt about. Okay, as always, I really look forward to looking at your writing, and I shall see you tomorrow.